It's January 7th, 2017, and it's snowing in New York City. I hate snow, so I'm going to talk about the beach. I live in the most exciting and cosmopolitan city on Earth, yet I'm never more than one burp away from the beach bum I really am. My childhood nickname was Sea Monkey. I took my first steps on searing hot Carolina sand and played with seagulls, my three-jointed friends, and other soft-mouthed life, a term from Seamus Heaney, one of my favorite poets. My dad taught me the secret language of fishermen, and nothing makes me feel more alive than bringing fresh fish home to my family. Most of all, the ocean taught me how to be alone. For when we are alone and in a state of contemplation, we can begin to see ourselves seeing. And that's the first step in disappearing. And I believe that creativity is the process of vanishing on command. Art shows us how to be human. We tend to walk through life fragmented in two parts, focused either on bodily sensations or thoughts. Rarely are we fully present in both. Painting shows us how to be whole because it is whole. A painting is two things at the same time: a pile of colors on a flat surface and a fictive world into which we expand our consciousness. When you become your own best friend, you give up trying to win the approval of others, and in doing so, gain a greater access to yourself. And I think that's ultimately what our viewers expect from us. That's what people want from dreamers. To have access to another human being, to see the world through their eyes, to expand themselves into the footprints of another person, to remind them that they are not alone. They want to be present for that fleeting moment of transmission. Transmission is one of those magic words every painter should write on their walls. One of my favorite things to do is drive and listen to the radio. I get in the car, switch the radio to AM, and dial. Painters live on the AM band. Crackling static is our national anthem. Distant voices flicker in and out, and we keep dialing. Painting is dialing. We show up every day, regardless of the results, and we dial. Every now and then, there'll be that distant signal from the other side. But we keep dialing. We never stop dialing. This new body of paintings, which I've been preparing for the last several months, will be debuted here in New York City this March 2017. And I consider all of you who watch these videos friends. This is a safe work environment. So I'm going to do something stupid and show paintings that aren't finished to try to articulate some of the changes I sense coming in my own work. Because I'm stupid. Throughout the history of painting, painters have relied on four primary methods to suggest pictorial depth: linear perspective, as in the Renaissance; the manipulation of scale, as in Mannerism; the use of atmospheric perspective, as in Romanticism and Luminism; and the retinal sensation of color applied in planes, as in Impressionism and Cubism. And basically, painters have riffed on one or all four of those methods ever since. In my own work, I tend to rely on scale, atmosphere, and the stacking of color to suggest pictorial depth. But lately, I've been seeing the reintroduction of linear perspective in my own work, especially the diagonal orientation. Traditionally, the vertical refers to the human figure, the horizontal to the landscape. But the diagonal suggests imbalance, movement, or the potential for movement. And I think because I live in New York City and have done so for 30 years, among verticals and horizontals, I think this interest in the diagonal is a resistance against the very orientation that I walk around in every single day. The reason that I like to draw trees is because I'm obsessed with corners, the meeting point of two lines, the vertical trunk intersecting into the horizontal earth. Everything that I'm after in the framework of my paintings is embodied in that immovable marking of location. I learned how to see by drawing oak trees in the low country of South Carolina. Everything a painter needs, direct and reflected light, shadow, vertical and horizontal, is bundled under their ancient canopies. Depiction allows for a broader range of expression because it expands things to which we can all relate. Starting with the observable world also keeps chaos at bay. Freedom isn't doing anything you want, but everything you can within limitations. Starting with a set of limitations allows you to create a cosmos while standing on a postage stamp. Making art about art always sounded snobby to me because you're starting with something exclusive. Art about art, to me, feels creatively bankrupt. The more arty something is, the less it relates to the real world that connects all of us. A painting begins with exposed threads and ends by attempting to expose the threads that bind everything together. If you're making art, then you're trying too hard. Trying too hard always shows and always sucks the big one. Jackson Pollock painted schematics of human figures in his overall paintings. He reduced those figures to undulating lassos of pigment, yet their presence remains, and you can see it in blue poles. Willem de Kooning began with the female form so that he could wander away from it, until that form became an unrecognizable, sexless array of gestures and events, yet they still beam with spirit and life. He intensifies the same limitations that he imposed by using the figure in the first place. I draw trees, but I paint the treeness of trees. I love nature, but I didn't become a landscape painter until I came indoors. That's why I live in New York City, in grids made of concrete and glass. That removal from nature is my glorious limitation. And you can't paint nature unless you sit with your back to the window. People sometimes ask if I take hikes or look at vistas in order to paint the landscape, and I don't. I hike my ass down to Starbucks and sit with my back to the window. A mass of stupid filth. That's what a critic wrote about Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Someone should tell Pissarro that in the real world, trees are not violet. That's what a critic wrote about Pissarro. Oprah Winfrey got bad reviews, Led Zeppelin, Bob Dylan, the list goes on and on. What that tells me is that artists are always right. We decide, we lead the way, others follow. I have not one, but 2 books full of articles and reviews, and I believe that I've had a successful career because I have not read a single one of them. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I read 3 of them. A review in the Village Voice, one in Art in America, and one in the San Francisco Chronicle. But otherwise, my rule is if it has my name in it, I never ever read it. I have my wife will or someone else, they can sort of summarize it for me. This is not because I don't care or because I'm arrogant, it's because I care too much. A bad review will bum me for weeks. And a good review is just as destructive because you want to repeat good behavior. Never ever read your reviews. When you put yourself out there like we do every single day, you open yourself up to criticism. Some people are going to like it, some people not so much. But your job is not to please people, your job is to be the most like yourself. And that is a friggin' full-time job. That's enough to spend your entire life on. Art criticism is a valuable part of the work that we do. I read a great deal of criticism, and it helps form a discourse in the art world that we work in. It helps put our work in context, and it teaches me a lot. One of my favorite books is by William V. Dunning called Changing Images of Pictorial Space. I'm also currently reading Dialectics of Decadence by Donald Cuspit. So I do read a good bit of criticism, just never anything to do with me or my work. Art is not created by consensus. It's created by crazy people being the most like themselves. And if you're an artist and you're not going to like this, you're crazy, period. I don't mean hostage-taking, googly-eyed crazy, but that you are willing to spend your precious time on earth repeating the same behavior and failing. Art fails us. It is lifeless and incomplete. We project our vitality into it, and in return, it compensates us for life's impermanence. By magnifying its own limitations, art shows us that perfection is unattainable. It's the longing that matters. No painting ever looks as good as the one I see in my mind, but the next one might, so I keep trying. At the heart of every work of art is unfulfilled longing, all gift-wrapped and delivered to your door. We are a delivery system. So it's important to remember, your job is not to work for critics. Your job is to be the most like yourself. I know a lot of critics. I have a lot of good friends who are critics. But the artists are in charge. We make the future. Besides, I have never met a single person who laid flowers at the grave of a critic.